fellow UUP.
My apologies.
Now,
Yep, go right ahead. Sorry about that.
no problem. Good afternoon, fellow UUPers. Welcome to our kickoff Black History Month event. My name is Darlene Mayers, co-chairperson of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Statewide Committee, and I'm very excited to be a part of this activity. We will be hosting 2 other events in this month, and I hope that you will join us and encourage others to register for these future 1-hour Zoom activities. The Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Statewide Committee is made of members from the 32 chapters of UUP and consists of about 60 persons. The DEI committee identified 5 priorities this year and divided them into working subcommittees whose members are putting together projects. They are: priority 1, ensure that every chapter has a DEI committee; 2, sensitivity training; 3, collaborative partnerships; 4, legislative agenda; and priority 5, event planning. The hardworking members for the event planning subcommittee are Ms. Patricia Duffy from Upstate Medical, Rafael Romero from Polytechnic Institute, and co-chairs Patrick Romain, Albany, and myself, Farmingdale. Truthfully, none of this would have been completed in time without help and input from Ms. Danielle Judge, Assistant Director of Social Justice and Mobilization. Her IT members, the staff of UUP at large, and most importantly, the encouragement from our statewide president, Mr. Fred Kowal, his officers, and his executive board. All subgroups come together monthly to discuss DEI concerns and create plans to inform, influence, and further the understanding of power, privilege, supremacy, oppression, equity, and how they impact colleagues and students. And so today's event is an outcome of these planning meetings. And now I have the pleasure of presenting to you our statewide president, Mr. Fred Kowal. Fred Kowal has led our union, UUP, which represents some 37,000 members since 2013. In his vision for UUP and leadership, he has sought methods to strengthen membership and develop strategies to ensure that it has political power to resist austerity budgeting. Here are some examples. UUP has become a politically influential organization in New York State, brings attention to important issues such as securing long-term funding sources for SUNY, combating climate change, and fighting for racial and social justice. Members have been trained in mobilization and organizing in anticipation of rulings, in particular, the ruling against organized labor in the US Supreme Court's landmark Janus versus AFSCME, which occurred in 2018, identified innovative solutions to New York State. His New York 25 plan is a wide-ranging blueprint that sets SUNY as a leader in combating climate change and the state's transition to a sustainable future, while promoting the health of all New Yorkers and establishing reliable, long-term resources for public higher education in New York. This sets a solid course for SUNY into the 2020s and beyond. And in 2020, Kowal strengthened the bonds between the union and members during the coronavirus pandemic, spearheading a program to provide frontline UUP members with hotel rooms near SUNY's public hospitals by directing the purchase of protective equipment for essential workers at SUNY's hospitals, including 100,000 isolation gowns, thousands of N95 masks, and nitrile gloves, and holding a series of town hall forums with members, the first time UUP has even held such events. I truly hope that you will enjoy this hour. And now I'm going to turn this over to Fred. Fred, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Darlene. I'm honored to be here and flattered by your words. Thank you. Everything that you pointed to in terms of what we've been able to do is because of the amazing members that we have, the commitment of phenomenal activists across our chapters. And I've just been blessed to work with some outstanding chapter presidents, exec board members like yourself and Patrick, and committee chairs, and my fellow officers. This is a unique union in our ability to bring in new, energetic, committed unionists who I believe accept the principle, which I hold very dear, that we have to be more than a union. If a union is defined as simply seeking for itself the best pay, the best working conditions, that's all very important. But I think it is absolutely necessary that this union, and indeed all unions, stand for a future and building a future that is just and equitable for all. And so to begin with, it is an absolute honor to be here at this virtual event, joining colleagues, joining comrades in the workers' movement, all united to build a better union movement, a better state, a better nation, a better world. We need to be ambitious. We stand really at the precipice, both as a nation and as a world, a precipice that before us is potentially just horrific to imagine, with forces of hatred turned loose like never before around the world, and violence and a loss of hope because of what's happened to our climate, to our environment, and with a pandemic, to our own health and safety. I happen to be at Downstate Medical University, and I will get back to why I'm here when I close my comments. But I really can't think of a better place to be, because in our many campuses where we work, to a large extent, the front lines of the battle for diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice, especially justice, is right here, right at Downstate, where we are faced with the reality, and we're faced with the reality of COVID from its early days and its worst days. And Downstate was a COVID-only hospital, and it has borne an incredible burden. And again, I will return to that theme when I close. But I think we all, as unionists, have to be honest with ourselves. I think it's important, as befits anyone who is in any kind of movement, to understand the faults and flaws that can exist in such a movement. And in a union movement, we have a racist history. For the vast spread of union history, African Americans were excluded. Other ethnic groups were excluded, but more than anything else, there was a deep-seated racism in America's workers' movement and unions that was violent, that was destructive, and that fed the segregation that existed in our country. And let's be clear about where we stand in the United States. We are looking back at 400 years of racism towards African Americans that started with the enslavement of millions of people, but then was followed by virtual enslavement, both economically, politically, and I would add socially. That is our history. That is who we are. And in order to heal any wound, one must clean out the infection. One must bring about a healing that is complete, but that kind of healing takes a lot of work and a long time. When I say that I want UUP to be more than a union, and I'm not one, and my fellow officers will tell you this, I am not a big fan of resolutions. I never heard a revolution being started by a resolution or being concluded by one. However, 2 years ago, in the aftermath of the brutal murder of George Floyd, this union passed a resolution at its exec board, a social justice resolution. It's one of the longest ones I've ever seen this union produce. And of all the things that I've been involved with over my years in UUP, I'm proudest of this resolution. A lot of work went into it. And I wanted this resolution to challenge us to look outward, but also inward. I think it's that important. That resolution staked out our positions that Darlene alluded to when she talked about NY25. We talked about the fact that we need to have a university that is at least 25% faculty and staff, African American, Latinx, Native American, excluded for so long, and still numbers are appallingly low in SUNY. There also needs to be the diversification of the leadership of SUNY. When this resolution was passed, it was prior to the appointment of the former Chancellor, Malatras. We were the only voice that publicly stated we wanted a chancellor to come to SUNY at that time from African American, Latinx, or Native American community. SUNY's trustees chose otherwise. This time around, we are insisting once again that once delayed cannot be repeated. This time, there needs to be a bringing in of a chancellor who comes from an underrepresented community of color. We also embraced through this resolution, and I did say revolution almost, right? We talked about expanding healthcare, not just in terms of making it affordable to everyone, but making it accessible to everyone. You come to Central Brooklyn and you see that without downstate and without, across the road here with Kings County, which is a city-run hospital, without these two massive institutions, there would be no healthcare. But both institutions are terribly underfunded. That's an injustice. That's racism. Okay. We called for a change in our internal culture in UUP. And we're going to see that what's going on in UUP during Black History Month is the beginning of the beginning. As Darlene pointed out, and I want to salute Darlene, and I want to salute Patrick Romain and the members of the DEI committee for doing phenomenal work, really taking the lead for the union. That's what needs to happen. But there will be additional panels this month. But then we have in our sights a program, an aggressive program, so that the members of this union face the realities of what we as a society have done to people of color and how we must heal from that. There will be workshops, there will be panels, there will be teaching, there will be learning, there will be a lot of difficult moments. Will be an ongoing effort that will go on long after I'm president of UUP, maybe long beyond where any of us are engaged, although Anthony, you're pretty young. So it is the case where this work begun now with this panel will continue. And then those of us who are engaged now, hand it off to others. And we will continue this work, and we will be a shining light to the workers' movement about the way racism is addressed, how the culture of racism is changed and eliminated. So today is the start, and I'm excited, I'm honored to be here virtually with colleagues and comrades. And I want to pivot back for a moment to why I'm at Downstate. As I was telling folks early on, I got up at 4:30 this morning to drive down here. And the reason why I'm here is we were recording television commercials that are going to be going statewide. And what's the purpose of these television commercials? They are to demand funding for SUNY. The governor's done a nice job on the budget. Yeah. After you get hollowed out for 11 years, after not getting anything, crumbs can look pretty good, but it's time for a meal, okay? And that's why when we say, thank you, Governor, but we need more, we mean it, okay? And that includes funding to campuses so that there can be recruitment, retention of long-term tenured faculty, permanent professional staff who are African-American, Latinx, Native American. Bring the diversity in as our student body is diversifying. But the other thing is the fact that in the governor's budget, there's not a penny for these SUNY hospitals, like where I am at Downstate or at Upstate or at Stony Brook. And especially when you look at what happens here at Downstate and pretty much the same thing at Upstate. You're talking about hospitals that serve overwhelmingly individuals who come from under-resourced communities. And here at Downstate, African-American, Caribbean-American. That's what we're looking at in terms of who is benefiting from a place like downstate. And when a place like downstate has its budget cut year after year and has no budget, no state funding for this year, to me, that's an avenue for reparations. There's a lot of that talk that goes on. Well, you know, how can you provide reparations for those who were victims of enslavement and their descendants? Well, here's a way. How about bringing in the $150 million that downstate lost by becoming a COVID-only hospital? How about that as a starter? How about $100 million to start a state-of-the-art maternal care center here at downstate to address the fact that African-American women, and it doesn't matter the income level, it's race, not income, die at twice the numbers as white American women in childbirth? How about having emergency care centers, ambulatory care centers, where people in their communities can get primary care anywhere in Brooklyn? And if they have serious conditions, can come here to a state-of-the-art hospital. That's going to take a lot of money too. That's how you address long-term racism. You address it through real efforts. As the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King said in those last months of his life, you know, voting rights, civil rights, 1964 law, 1965 voting rights, that didn't cost the country a penny. But when you're talking about addressing the long-term ramifications of racism, you need a massive redistribution of wealth. That is what is necessary. And we can all be a part of it right now, right here. On Friday is an advocacy day where any member of UUP can take part, meet with legislators, and talk about what we need. And what we need is economic justice. And what we need is racial justice. We have someone who claims she's a progressive as a governor. We have a progressive legislature, a veto-proof Democratic majority. It's time to make real steps in the right direction. And as a sidelight, State Comptroller just released numbers. The state of New York has even more money than they thought they have. We're talking tens of billions of dollars in tax revenue. The millionaires didn't leave when the taxes went up, so the revenue is there. We have a chance, sisters and brothers, union siblings, to make a real difference this year. Please join me. And when it comes to someone who I know is with us for the long haul, because he has stood by UUP and every union in the state AFL-CIO, I can't think of anyone better to speak to the issues that we are facing as a society, as a state, as a union movement than my union sibling, Terry Melvin. Terry is the Secretary Treasurer of the New York State AFL-CIO, the largest of the state federations in the AFL-CIO across the country. I've had the pleasure of working with Terry many times. And I've got to tell you, some of my favorite moments as UUP president is just, I was going to say sit back and listen to Terry. You cannot sit back and listen to Terry. He is a reverend, and he speaks not only from his heart, but from his soul. And he will bring us all along. And we will be ready to march, and we will be ready to fight when Terry speaks to us. Terry, it's an honor to have you here on the panel. I want to turn it over to you and let you have this audience at your disposal. And we're ready to hear, we're ready to be inspired, we're ready to get to work. So with that, my brother, it's yours, Terry.
Thank you so much, Fred. Thank you so much for your leadership, the work that you do every day to lift up workers throughout New York State, not just UUP workers, but all workers, because we are standing together in this fight. Greetings, UUP. It is an honor. It is an honor for me to be with you today. I also want to thank your DEI committee for the invitation. Thank Danielle for insisting that I be here. It wasn't like she asked me to come. The message was sent that Danielle said you need to be here, and I am here. I've been given an opportunity today to speak to you a little about Black history and the labor movement. I need to start with the fact that civil rights and labor rights in this country were birthed at the same time, at least for Black people. It was for our labor that we were put in chains. The emancipation movement was a labor movement as well, since our shackles were there for capital for our bosses and our slave masters. The fight to free my ancestors was also a fight for them to control their labor as well as their life. Slavery was both racial and economic oppression, and that is the roots of this movement in my community and one of the pillars of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. See, Dr. King knew that the economic liberation of Black people was as important as the legal liberation. He knew that we could only be free as a people if we achieved equity in both society and in the workplace. He was assassinated while fighting for workers. He was murdered while supporting Black unionists. He was killed because he was mobilizing real social change, real social justice, real conversations on equity. King spoke at the 1961 AFL-CIO convention. And when he spoke there, he said, Negroes are almost entirely a working people. There are pitifully few Negro millionaires and few Negro employers. He said, our needs are identical with labor's needs: decent wages, fair working conditions, livable housing, old age security, health and welfare measures. He said conditions in which families can grow, have educations for their children, and respect in the community. He said that is why Negroes support labor's demands and fight laws which curb labor. He said that is why the labor hater and the labor hater and the labor baiter is virtually always a twin-headed creature spewing anti-Negro epithets from one mouth and anti-labor propaganda from the other. Martin went on to say, I look forward confidently to the day when all who work for a living will be one, with no thought to their separateness as Negroes, Jews, Italians, and any other distinctions. He said, this will be the day when we will bring into full realization the American dream, a dream yet unfulfilled. He said a dream of equality, of opportunity, of privilege and property widely distributed. He said a dream of a land where men will not take necessities from the many to give luxuries to the few. He said a dream of a land where men will not argue that the color of man's skin determines the content of their character. He said a dream of a nation where all our gifts and resources are held not for ourselves alone, but as instruments of service for the rest of humanity. He said a dream of a country where every man will respect the dignity and worth of the human personality. He said that, my sisters and brothers, he said, is the dream. Yes, we remember his legacy and are reminded of his works. But it is not enough to remember. It is not enough to reminisce. The economic inequalities of Black people have not gotten better in all these years. Our struggle has not ended. Obama's election did not erase oppression. It galvanized the opposition. It empowered the white supremacists. It got us the Orange Menace in 2016. The struggle is not over, my people. Our fight is far from done. Right now, there's a massive anti-work movement where non-union workers are quitting in mass, demanding better standards, holding their employers accountable. Black Lives Matter is far from finished as a movement. The videos haven't stopped. The footage haven't ceased. Just the other day, a 21-year-old boy, I say a boy, 21-year-old man in his own house, in his own bed was shot to death by police with a no-knock warrant. It's still happening, sisters and brothers. We are still being shot at unacceptable rates. We need societal reform from legislations to the labor halls, from the White House to the trap house, from the rooter to the tutor. Our work is far from done. It is the fundamental right of every American to elect who will represent them in government. We go all over the world telling people that democracy is the way to go. One man, one woman, one vote, but not here in America. Just because the demographics in our country is changing do not mean that we need to change the rules for voting. It does not mean that we need to set up an apartheid here in the United States of America, because that is exactly what they are trying to do. It is the majority that is looking at the fact that in the next 2 decades, they will be the minority. They do not want to give up power. They do not want to give up position. They do not want to give up authority. They do not want to give up wealth. So now they are trying to put in systems where even though they may be the minority, but they will carry the votes to continue to do what they are doing right now. There is nothing more fundamental in democracy than the right to vote. It is desperately needed a federal response to the attacks on the voting rights happening in state legislatures all across this country. Americans' unions can't let an anti-worker minority block the will of the American people. We've got to join together and fight like never before. I said we've got to fight till hell freezes over, and then we got to put some ice skates on and fight on across the land. 6 months, sisters and brothers, before Martin Luther King was assassinated, he spoke to a group of students at Barrett Junior High School in Philadelphia in October 26, 1967. The words that King spoke on that day are still relevant to anyone looking to set a standard for success in their life. Here are 4 excerpts from Martin Luther King's speech that anyone can use for their personal blueprints of their own life. Number 1, he said, in your life's blueprint should be a deep belief in your own dignity, your own worth, your own somebody-ness. Don't allow anybody, he said, to make you feel that you are nobody. You always feel that you count. Always feel that you have worth. And always feel that your life has ultimate significance. Secondly, he said, in your life's blueprint, you must have a basic principle and determination to achieve excellence in your various fields of endeavor. He said, if it falls to your lot to be a street sweeper, sweep streets like Michelangelo painted pictures. He said, sweep streets like Beethoven composed music. Sweep streets, he said, like Leontyne Price sings before the Metropolitan Opera. He said, and sweep streets like Shakespeare wrote poetry. He said, sweep streets so well that all the hosts of heaven and earth will have to pause and say, here lived a great street sweeper who swept his job well. He said, and third, if you can't be a pine on the top of a hill, be a scrub in the valley. He said, but be the best little scrub on the side of the hill. He said, be a brush if you can't be a tree. And if you can't be a highway, he said, be a trail. He said, if you can't be a sun, be a star. For it isn't by size that you win or fail, but be the best of whatever you are. He said, and finally, in your life's blueprint, you must be a commitment to the eternal principles of beauty, love, and justice. He said, however young you are, You have a responsibility to seek to make your nation a better nation in which you live. You have a responsibility, he said, to seek to make life better for everybody. And he said, and so you must be involved in the struggle of freedom and justice. He said, if you can't fly, run. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. But by all means, Martin said, keep on moving forward. Today, sisters and brothers, I remember, and tomorrow I fight. And I call on all of you to join me. There is still so much work to be done. We are not living the dream, but damn if I ain't gonna fight for it. Social change comes from social pressure, and we have to turn up the heat. This is our moment to do the right thing. It is our moment to lead. It is our moment to etch our names in the walls of history for fighting back this fascism, for closing the gap between the rich and the poor, for loving all our people, black, white, brown, gay, straight, and trans. This is our moment to lead in the face fear in the face, and say, not on our watch. I need you to rise up. I need you to stand on those giant shoulders and say, you will not bend, you will not break. You are, sisters and brothers, your sister and brother's keeper. I need you to make sure people vote for truth. This country votes for justice, and that we all vote for the American way that ended slavery, the American way that says that we are all free, the American way that says that if you work hard, you will prosper. This is our America, and we will show the country and in that the world that we are one people under God, invisible, with liberty and justice for all. Sisters and brothers, it is our mission, it is our calling, it is our mandate to make tomorrow better than today, to make the lives of our children better than ours, and to make sure there is a legacy to keep fighting for, a dream to keep striving for, a mountaintop to keep climbing towards. It is our duty to make sure we do not fail, because failure is not an option. Failure is not a choice. Failure is the white flag our enemies raise as we dance in victory. It is our time. It is our time to take back this country. We have to stand up. We have to rise up. We have to march, rally, and resist at all corners, all angles, and all turns. We have to stamp our legacy of equality and justice into the DNA of our future's leaders, and we have to do it now. Because if we do not invest in the legacy of our future, we will be investing in the funeral of our movement. Sisters and brothers, we have arrived at a crossroads. The work we must do is not just in the union movement, it's in and for our society as a whole. So I need you to get engaged like never before. I want to ask, are you ready to get engaged? Are you ready to agitate? Are you ready to hold politicians accountable? Are you willing to march as long as it takes to make our communities safe from gun violence? Then I'd ask you to stand with me. We will take America where it so desperately needs to go, to the roots of inequality and security, and to the mountaintop of freedom and justice. We will never, ever leave the battlefield. I ask all of you in UUP to join me in this battle. The battle is not over, but if we continue to fight, if we continue to join arms, if we continue to march together, we will overcome. God bless you. God bless UUP, and God bless our great movement. Thank you so much.
Woo! Thank you, Terry. As always, thank you. You're amazing, brother. Much love.
Thank you for the opportunity. I really
you.
appreciate it. Don't take it for granted.
No,
Don't take it
no,
for granted.
no. Thank you. phenomenal, and we are ready. We have to. We cannot wait. There cannot be no waiting. For everything can be lost. That which we have struggled for, and so many have struggled. As you put it so well, we stand on the shoulders of giants, and we owe it to them, and we owe it to those who come after us to do the work that must be done. And with that, thank you again. Thank you, Terry, on behalf of all of us in UUP for joining us and for inspiring us as you always do. It's now my honor to introduce our next speaker, who is also a good friend, who I just saw a couple of months ago, back when it was, remember when it was safe to go out and have meetings and all, and I came down to New Paltz and we had a rally. It was great to see you then, Anthony. Anthony Dandridge joins us from SUNY New Paltz. Anthony is an Africanologist in the Department of Black Studies. He was raised in Philadelphia. Taught for 13 years in the philosophy department at Temple University, and in that department of Africology and African American Studies. It is, and this I did not know, Anthony, it is the first PhD granting department in the discipline of Black Studies in the world. Anthony's major interests revolve around African and African American philosophy, and that includes work on issues, of course, involving race, but also religion, gender, environmentalism, and environmental justice. And many of you know how engaged I am on those issues. I'm just looking forward to hearing what you have to say on all these things, Anthony. And so to all UUPers and other guests, please give a warm welcome to our colleague, our union sibling, Anthony Dandridge from New Paltz. Anthony, take it away.
Peace, family. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Got you. So thank you very much for that introduction. I'd like to thank everybody, the organizing committee, for just giving me the opportunity to be in this space. I am very honored, and again, and I don't take that for granted. Now, imagine, put yourself in my shoes. I'm not just the panelists, I mean everybody that's watching. Put yourself in my shoes, and you come behind Fred Kowal and how he just set this thing up, and then you got Reverend Terry and how he just killed. It's like, what do I do now? And even as it relates to the content that they did, that they engaged, I was like, oh, that's some of my stuff. You snatched my stuff. Right? So you have all of these things going on, but I definitely feel as though that I have something to add to this discussion as we start to move forward. You see that awkward pause? You see that? I was actually doing that intentionally. If anybody knows me, that's one of the things that I do in a variety of different spaces. I do it in my classroom with my courses at the beginning of the year, but I also do this at conferences and different things like that. And I do that to speak to this particular issue. Silence is particularly important. Silence is measurable. You can measure in silence, right? So in accordance with following some of the lead that Reverend Terry gave with respect to his reference to Martin Luther King said, in the end, you will not remember the words of your enemies, but the silence of your friends. Let that resonate for a little bit. He also said, our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. This is Black History Month. Black History Month was first established by Carter G. Woodson. Who got his PhD in history out of Harvard. He actually wrote this book called The Miseducation of the Negro. It was actually established as Negro History Week in 1926 by Carter G. Woodson. And then around 1969, 1970, you have a variety of different Black educators, and they put forth Black History Month. And that was actually recognized in 1976 by the presidential administration. So Black History Month seeks to do a variety of different things, but also it seeks to amplify the voices of people of African descent in a variety of different spaces. And we also understand that these voices should not just be reduced to any one month, right? Because we're going to do Black history 365 days a year, but just giving a balance with respect to, well, when do we want to center these voices in a variety of different ways? That month is important for centering those voices. I would be remiss if I did not mention the fact that, and the flyer that actually went out. I'm union man for life. I'm committed to the struggle in a variety of different ways. But in the flyer that went out, it had my name, and also connected me with some organizations. You know, everybody's here doing a variety of different things, right? But it talked about that organization I was connected to was called SUNY Collective. And I would be remiss, because I know the people in that collective would be upset with me if I recognized it and did not say anything. It's not called the SUNY Collective. It's called the SUNY Black Faculty and Staff Collective. It has that name for a reason. And I'll be engaged in this a little bit as we start to move forward. But then also another collective I'm part of is the Black Lives Matter at School Collective here at SUNY New Paltz. So I just wanted to give us a little bit of overview and engagement with respect to some of the contributions that I'm making in those spaces that seek to combat a variety of different things that President Fred was talking about as it relates to the violence, the violence that we're going through, the destruction, and how unions participated in that in a variety of different ways, and how it fed segregation, but then how we are seeking to create a better future in a variety of different ways with the establishment of these organizations. All right, I have a PowerPoint I want to pull up. Let's do this. So this was a UUP statement that was put out. It was called Fighting Racial Injustice. I wanted to read through that quickly. I know my time is limited, so I'm going to do a swift overview of a variety of different issues. But this statement is important, right? As educators, health professionals, and unionists, we cannot be silent. That word right there. We cannot be silent to the continued injustices against people of color in our country. We must condemn racist violence like that which led to the death of George Floyd. We mourn for his family, for the pain of their loss and the way he was stolen from them. We stand with our students, patients, and members affected by these injustices and with peaceful protesters across the country demanding justice and demanding change. It is long past the time when racist institutions are reformed to reflect the ideals of a society that claims to believe in equality and justice for all. UUP has a long history of commitment to social justice, and we stand steadfast by that commitment today. UUP President Fred Kowal released a statement on the death of George Floyd that can be found. UUP as issued a press release that applauds the state legislature for its actions on police reform bills and calls on New York State and SUNY to be an engine of transformation during a time when our state and nation are facing multifaceted crisis, and that release is actually in the PowerPoint. Right? So we have all these issues going on, and that is a statement about UUP and where it's at right now and seeking to go forward as it supports us in this fight with respect to racial injustice. I'm also a member of Black Lives Matter School. I'm a member of Black Lives Matter School here at SUNY New Paltz. At SUNY New Paltz as an institution, every February, we have the widest programming of events for the last 4 years out of any institution of higher education in the entire nation. At the end of this presentation, I'll make sure I put some I'll give the websites and put them in the chat so people can get access to them. But as it relates to some of the objectives and demands with respect to Black Lives Matter School, it's more of a K through 12 movement and we took that movement and shifted it to institutions of higher education here at SUNY New Paltz. Number one, it seeks to end zero tolerance within the classrooms. Number two, it seeks to mandate Black history and ethnic studies. It's important for us to understand that Black history and ethnic studies is not just for Black folk, it's for all folk. All right. Black history is American history. Black history and ethnic studies centers Black people, but it's for the world, for everybody to enjoy. Hire more Black teachers, and it also seeks to fund counselors, not cops, in some meaningful ways, because there have for years been key findings with respect to how schools are under-resourced and students tend to be over-criminalized. Black Lives Matter School is dedicated to provoking deep thought and discussion regarding issues of racism on our campus and society at large. As a community of students, staff, faculty, and administrators at a public higher institution, it is our duty to engage each other across hierarchical structures to learn, explore, and address issues of systemic racism and discrimination throughout our campus. The Black Lives Matter School, SUNY New Paltz, builds momentum for persistent and sustained critical reflection, discussion, and action in regards to its issues that would go beyond the year of 2020, because we've been doing this for a minute now, and we seek to move it forward for a long time. It's an organization that's centered around developing support systems that engage the complex, unjustifiably marginalizing realities faced by Black people on and off campus. When we start even looking at some of the percentages, it's important for us to understand that Black folk are 17% of New York State. We're only 10% of SUNY, and right here on campus, we are less than 6% of the population here on campus. As I work with the SUNY Black Faculty and Staff Collective, this is part of our mission statement here, and we seek to transform SUNY into an anti-racist community of 2- and 4-year institutions. And we wrote up this letter to draw attentions with respect to what is going on for SUNY's insufficient and ongoing lack of care and concern for Black lives within and beyond its campuses. There are a variety of different things that have been going on recently with respect to politics and the polarization that has complemented those politics, the violence and so on, the death of George Floyd, the death of Maurice Gordon, and other issues. What we have to promote here is an anti-racist ideology. As Angela Davis astutely noted, it's not enough anymore to not be racist. We must all be anti-racist. And our initial meeting for SUNY New Paltz, and we met with SUNY, initial meeting for SUNY Black Faculty and Staff Collective. We met with SUNY on July 10th. We met with the executive committee. We met with Christina Johnson, who is the outgoing chancellor, and we met with the great late Teresa Miller, who was the chief diversity officer. We wanted to prioritize a variety of different outcomes and recommendations. And one recommendation that we had was that a formal letter from SUNY Dutchess Community College, president and SUNY leadership town, that acknowledged the loss of Maurice Gordon's life. We recommended that a scholarship was created in his name, and we have actually made significant progress with these things. We made another recommendation that we needed a seat at the table for SUNY Black Faculty and Staff Collective as SUNY's transitional leadership team in order to collaboratively engage in advancement and increasing racial diversity across SUNY campuses. And I believe President Fred actually spoke to that, the significance of us having a chancellor that walks, talks, and looks like us as we start to move forward in terms of issues of equity, bringing equity to SUNY in a variety of different ways. Now is the time. Now is the time. Recommendation number 3 was the preservation of SUNY faculty and staff employment, especially Black faculty and staff, and key areas of support for Black students such as EOP, CSTEP, CAMP, and to maintain and further advance SUNY's progress on hiring racially diverse faculty and staff. Another recommendation was that we make SUNY's 64 campus system the exemplar of an anti-racist institution for higher learning. The mission statement should explicitly use language such as SUNY is committed to establishing and maintaining an anti-racist institutional culture that is dedicated to racial and social justice through its advocacy, research, and teaching, and recruitment, as well as its retention of students, staff, faculty, and senior leadership from racially diverse backgrounds across all its SUNY campuses. And these are now our 4 pillars of our organizational identity. Number 1, Black staff growth. We need more Black staff here in SUNY. We are here to find ways in which we can develop equitable outcomes. And when we start speaking about issues of equity, it's an issue of justice, but then also an issue of equal outcomes. It's important for us to do that. And a lot of times you need to make the investment on the front, and that might even take a shift, a disproportionate shift in resources, so we can combat those disproportionate outcomes that already exist. So we need to invest in Black staff and faculty. We need to, we advocate for Black faculty in our community in a variety of different ways. We support our students and partner with them in a variety of different advocacy ideas that they have that come up on individual campuses. That's monetary investment for a variety of different reasons, because we can't advance without not only symbolic investment. We don't want performative investment. We also want monetary investment as we move forward. And let me erase this.
What is happening in our schools today?
All right. Technical issues there. Technical issues there. I see my time is short. I wanted to show a little clip about Black Lives Matter in school, but I won't do that. But because the reason why I was going to show that 2-minute clip was for individuals to start to understand who we are as people and what those struggles look like. We are struggling. Our students are struggling. The faculty are struggling. The nation is struggling right now. And at the end of the day, as we move forward, we are attempting to move forward that is in a way that is in the best interest of all communities. And we feel as though that unions and union membership, as they seek to speak to the different ways in which our interests overlap, union membership can help out can help out the unions in a variety of different ways in terms of making the unions more diverse, but then also unions can help out our communities in terms of where we want to go and helping our communities to thrive and in a variety of different spaces. So thank y'all very much. I really appreciate everybody and looking forward to co-creating as we start to move forward and create and be victorious in these outcomes as we move towards the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Anthony. That was fantastic. Thought-provoking as always, challenging, but also inspiring. We got a lot to do, and absolutely looking forward to partnering with you and with all of the groups engaged of the work. There's plenty of work for everyone to do. We need to work together because the tasks are awesome. That which needs to be overcome is incredibly challenging and difficult. We all need to pull together and looking forward, continuing to work with you and to bring the energy and the commitment of those who are forging a path so that we can be a part of that and we can learn and grow. So thank you very, very much. Much appreciate your work and being a part of our presentations today. And now I want to turn to my friend and colleague from the University at Albany. Patrick Romain and I go way back. We've worked together as part of UUP for so many years. Patrick is a dear friend and serves on statewide UUP executive board while also working at the University at Albany in the union chapter there, but also as part of the EOP staff in one of the top programs in SUNY, nationally recognized EOP program. Patrick is deeply committed to his students. I can't tell you how many times in my advocacy work in the Capitol, run into graduates from the University at Albany who were in EOP, and they always ask about Patrick. And that's when Patrick's not with me advocating, because I will tell you a little secret about Patrick. He knows everybody in Albany. It is really a pleasure to introduce Patrick Romain to all of you, so that he can share with you his experiences and how important, and I don't want to embarrass you here, Patrick, but the incredible importance of your work in bringing about a more socially and racially just nation and world because of what you do for our students and for our SUNY institutions. So it is a pleasure to share this program with you, and take it away, Patrick.
Thank you so much, Fred, for that introduction. But I want to thank Fred. I want to thank the leadership of UUP, the board members and our members, in particular, Darleyne, my co-chair, and also on the DEI committee, and Mary Garcia, my co-chair in EOP Opportunities Program. And I want to thank Reverend Terry and Anthony, what an outstanding job you did. Thank you for the passion. But I said on the shoulders of great people, I would not be standing here before you if it weren't for this man named Arthur O'Eve, the Honorable Arthur O'Eve, who fought to make EOP, EOC a reality. And so without him, I would not be here. So I thank him for this opportunity to fight for EOP. So I know Yannick and Audley are here. Those are people who fought. Cheryl Hamilton, who's continuously fighting for this program. As a product of EOP, my life changed. I tell my students that I am po no mo, right? And so they get it and they laugh. EOP changed my life. So when I go to work, that's my commitment every day to change the lives of our students, to make sure that we move those students from someone without a higher education opportunity, students who would not be admitted to college, right? And so you have all these potential, all these students of potential who are denied access. But EOP actually afford them the opportunity to graduate and to excel, and so to become doctors and lawyers. And so with medical EOP, and that's another point, to fight for that, to say, okay, we need to make sure that we have a track for our students, not only to do that, but to become doctors, to do all the things in the sciences. So thank you for that, Fred. But how did this change my life? I remember going to EOP, and I'm going to say a horrible name, but George Pataki was a person that was the best thing for me that got me to fight for and join UUP. If it weren't for George Pataki, I would not be fighting, right? But George Pataki he attacked all of us. And he wanted to end EOP. And that's when I saw the passion that we had to fight. And so I've been fighting ever since for EOP, for C-STEP, all right, for all the programs, because those are the programs that will change the lives of our students. So one of the things that Fred alluded to was Opportunity Day, all right? And so I cannot thank UUP for the support, for the money. And so people travel the whole state, from Buffalo to Stony Brook, the two extremes. They're leaving early in the morning and they're gonna walk through the Capitol to fight for funding for EOP. But at that same time, we're fighting for everything else. So without the medical schools, we would not exist, right? So we're fighting for the medical, we're fighting for downstate, Stony Brook, SUNY Upstate, right? So these are all the things that's so passionate about it. And so we have people who listen. And so I remember going to a Republican legislator, and he demoralized me. It was just a horrible, he did not care, right? So then I generalized things, and then I realized that's not true. So another time I went and I spoke with another Republican legislator, and our students started talking, and this woman started crying. She was hearing their life stories. We tell them to tell the truth and how this is going to change their lives. So I know that we're in a schedule. I don't want to take all the time, but I just want to say thank you for all of you, for all that you do. We need to continue to fight for diversity. But more importantly, we need to make sure that we're setting the future for our kids. And so for some of our kids, they need SUNY. They need for us to fight for them. And so we need to make sure they have access to healthcare. Guess what? That's UUP fighting for healthcare, right? So please, please, please join, advocate, fight. But diversity is not a one-day topic. It's a topic we need to live every day. So I want to thank you for your time. Thank you, Reverend. My orphan is going to come in the mail, right? And thank you, Anthony, as well. So thank you, Fred.
Thanks very much, Patrick. And I want to salute you because when we do our EOP Day, our Opportunity Program Day, because Darlene will bring EOC participants up from Farmingdale and in general from Long Island, and you always bring in the big crew from Albany. It is just amazing the stories that students have to tell. And that legislator is not the only one who has tears brought to their eyes. It's happened to me when you hear the stories of students who literally have come from living on the street or in homeless shelters, and they arrive at our campuses and their lives are changed. Literally, there are people in the New York State legislature who were homeless, had no adult presence in their lives, and EOP gave them an avenue. And it is just an amazing, amazing program. And that's why we fight for it as hard as we do. It is the good work that SUNY can do. I know we're coming to the end of the hour. Quite frankly, I think I've said enough. I'm just so inspired by everything that I've heard, and I want to turn it over to Darlene. I want to give you, my sister from Long Island, I want to give you the last word. You started us. I'd like you to wrap things up however you would like to. I just can't say enough about the work that you and Patrick have done in your committee in putting this together. It just fills up my heart. I'm walking on cloud 9 here when I get going, and I just thank you so much to all of us, all the people who joined today. This is just the start. But with that, I want to turn it over to you to wrap things up, Darlene, and thank you from the bottom of my heart for all that you and Patrick did, and Darlene, I'm sorry, and Danielle Judge Freeman for all her work too. So, but go ahead.
So thank you, Fred, and thank you everybody who's participated this afternoon. Those of you who joined and listened in, I hope you got some information that you didn't expect to receive. I certainly did. I just want to thank the presenters. I don't even have to say how awesome you were. I just know everybody appreciated your words of advice, your knowledge, your methods, and your encouragement. So I'm filled. I don't know how anybody else was, but I feel filled. All right, so here's what I want to say. We are going to continue with 2 other events in this month. Please spread the word. Danielle has worked so hard with her team to make sure that this event happened. Last year, she called me because I've been the co-chair of the DI committee for a good while. And she said to me, so what do you have on for the Black History Month? And I said, nothing. And she said, nothing. Oh, no. Well, this is the last time this happens. And so Danielle, I dedicate this to you. Guys, enjoy your rest of your day. Our other dates will be next Tuesday, not Wednesday. You can sign on if you follow the flyer that was sent to all emails, and then the following Tuesday. So next Tuesday, we're going to be talking about why Black America should get vaccinated. We're going to have a panel of professional healthcare providers to bring information and updates on that. And then we will close out on the 22nd with information about health, economic, environmental justice for a healthy community. So these are all topics that I hope are of interest to you and that you will share the words with others. And most importantly, think about what you're now going to do. If you're not part of an active committee, join one. And if it's not active, help make it active. Have a great weekend. Not a weekend. This is only, you see, I'm telling you, I'm so full. I just like, I can't do any more than this. This has just been beautiful, 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 beautiful. Great, great opportunity. Have a great day, one and all. And, you know, for those whose shoulders we stand on, thank you for your bravery. Bye-bye.